Yo, it's Noah. Today I'm just gonna talk about like getting into poetry, and how to read poetry. Not super in depth. I'm not gonna get technical. I want this to be like an introductory kind of just let's talk kind of thing. I'm not an English professor. I am an English major, so I'm kind of going through the motions right now. What I say is not the law. What I say is not to be taken seriously. Do your own thing. This is just what works for me, ideas I've encountered throughout my life, things of that nature. This video was inspired by Odie Online, who commented on my community post about posting more consistently. So, shout out for the idea, Mr. Idea Man. I'm going to read off my phone over here. You can't see it, but I got a few bullet points on there. I'm going to try to keep it short. My first bullet point that I feel is pretty important is to trust your gut and read what you're interested in more so than what's known or what's popular. If you like Emily Dickinson, Sylvia Plath, and you have a foundation and you're interested in that, go for that. Start for that. If maybe you don't know poetry at all, but you remember reading, I don't know, an Elizabeth Bishop poem when you were younger or whatever, stick with that. Stick with something you have a foundation on, or have a foundation built with, instead of just what's like the hot, crazy thing right now. Just because I feel like you always read more actively and will have more motivation to read when you already have kind of like a subconscious reason or belief in something, as opposed to just saying like, oh, well, so-and-so told me this is what I need to read. Hopefully that all makes sense. So that's my first bullet point. The second bullet point I have is it has a lot of layers. So that's close reading and reading passively. So I listened to a podcast a long time ago. It was Other PPL, hosted by Brad Listy. And one of the episodes had a speaker on there. And one of the speaker's friends was a poet who reads poetry a lot. And their poet friend had a really interesting take and approach to reading poems. And it was kind of something I've never encountered before. So the friend of the guest often physically prints out the poems that she likes and has encountered and posts them on her wall. And every day for like weeks on end, we'll read that poem, to, do like a quick scan. And throughout time, every time you read that poem, you'll discover whether it's a rhythm or metaphor or something new from the poem, which is a really interesting approach. I thought if you have a lot of time and you tend to take things slowly, or you're just a busy person, I feel like that would work really well. Close reading is exactly what it sounds like. A lot of poems can be close read. This is probably a hot take, but sometimes I think there are just things that, what's on the page is what it says, kind of like the blue curtains argument, if you get my drift. I read a poem once. I forgot who wrote it. They're pretty famous, but the poem had something to do with eating plums. And I kind of joked I was like, this is probably just about eating plums. But then other people were, oh no, I think this means this. Oh no, I think that means that. And it might, but close reading is an examination and a dissection of what you're reading. What are the uses of literary devices? What's the meter? There's a bunch of technical terms I can throw out. I don't really feel like it right now. I'm forgetting a lot of them. But my third bullet point, and I think this is another big one, is I feel like it's kind of a little bit misguided sometimes to go in and sight read a poem, if I'm going to use a musical term, and just try to understand everything off the bat. I think that's going to set you up for failure. I think that's going to frustrate you. Definitely, it's definitely healthy to be challenged. I don't think it's beneficial in the long run to want to run away from challenge, but don't go too hard on yourself. I think you'll know the balance when you see it, or you'll feel that balance being challenged when it comes across. Emily Dickinson's pretty famous for just being like weird in general. There's poems that still to this day people kind of debate the meaning. There's poems where she purposefully misspells words. Now I guess we don't know if it's purposefully, I guess, but one time in one of her poems she spells the word upon like upon, but she spells it with an opon, and there's debate on what that even means. But I think overall in poetry as a whole, I don't think it's a good idea to go in pretty green and try to understand everything off rip. Take it slow. Do the printing out thing, or have it on your phone saved in your notes app and go over it every day. Recently I did that with Elizabeth Bishop's The Moose. I read it once a day for like 2 or 3 weeks, and on the second or third week there were things that I were like, oh, okay, like the mental image is putting itself together in time. It's not going to just be like a movie playing in your head the first time you watch it. It's not going to show you everything, the first time. I think poetry needs time, in my opinion. Not a lot of us have a lot of time, especially given the world right now. I understand. But poetry, I think, inherently is not surface level, and it needs your time. I'm probably just gonna show a couple volumes of poetry I have. I don't want to say the recommendations, but if you just want to grab one that I hold up, that's fine. I think that'd be a good starting point. So I've shown this in past videos, but this is, oh, I forgot, this is gonna be bad on glare. I'm gonna have to get really close. So this is English Renaissance poetry, a collection of shorter poems selected by John Williams of Stoner fame and Butcher's Crossing. The lighting in here is terrible. Again, I need to quit doing this. I was going to do it for mood, but I don't know. Second one is Geography 3 by Elizabeth Bishop. This is a really good one too. There's a poem in here called The Moose that's really eerie but kind of dope. Another one I got is J. Bailey Hutchinson's Gut. This is more contemporary poetry. I tend to read a lot of like older poetry that is more strict in terms of like rhyme scheme and meter and syllable work, syllabic work. I don't know the terms. That's embarrassing. But yeah, then I have Edna St. Vincent Millay's selected poems. I love some Edna St. Vincent Millay. Super cool. She had a really interesting life. She kind of came up in the jazz age, and it's suspected that she was bisexual in a time where that was like not the cool thing to do. So she went through a lot of that. Maybe some of you guys don't think of it like this. Shakespeare is poetry. That glare is terrible. So I just picked up A Midsummer Night's Dream. There you go. That's a cool picture. And then I have a really beat up copy of the complete poetry and selected prose of John Milton. This book is like orange and looks like it has mold on it. So that's fun. If I start coughing and wheezing one day, I think I know why. But yeah, I might throw up some other poems, or I keep saying poems when I mean poets. I might throw up some other poets in like a slide. More specifically, poets that I have been lectured on by my English professors, and maybe you can go from there. I'll make like a little reference and see if that works. But yeah, thank you for watching. Have a good night. Make sure you get good sleep. Make sure you drink a lot of water. Thumbs up.